All right. All right. Thank you so much for coming. Again, for those who are here for another time to, talk about red flags and relationship red flags. Some of us are in relationships, dating, married, and red flags are universal. Sometimes you develop red flags while you're in a relationship, and sometimes you're dating and you're spotting these red flags in partners or potential partners that you might see a relationship with. So tonight we're definitely going to talk about spotting those red flags from a marriage point of view and a singles point of view, as we welcome Priscilla as she walks down and she comes here.
Yeah. So you guys excited about tonight? You guys ready to learn? Ready to grow? Amen. So here's what we're going to do, guys. Once again, I want to welcome you guys to First Friday. This is an initiative, a collaboration between myself, Keishorne Scott, who is America's #1 heartbreak coach, all right? As seen on CNN, TVs, everywhere you look, Keishorne is there. And we're so excited to be able to host these gatherings because we're looking forward to investing in seeing more healthy relationships. I believe that, well, I don't even believe this is proven that vital relationships and healthy relationships will impact your life more than money, how much money you make, what career path you have. If you don't learn how to have healthy relationships, one bad relationship can destroy your life or set your life back by 10, 15 years. All right? And so we want to help you, again, identify what are some of the pitfalls that can come along in the dating world. Somebody said the dating pool has pee in it, has pee and excrement. But some of the things we just talked about, right, in this little exercise we just did with the red flag game, these are some of the things you're gonna stumble into, right? And so today, we want to have this quick conversation. We're going to talk about some of the common red flags that some of you may run into. And before we do that, we want to introduce and welcome Priscilla, who is here with us. And you guys have seen her at our last First Friday. And we want to start off because, Keishorne and I are married now, and Priscilla is single, right? So, you can get your mic. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, Priscilla, I wanted you to talk about a time when, or maybe a last relationship or a previous time you went on a date and you ignored a red flag. Like maybe you didn't recognize the red flag in the beginning, and then eventually it showed up and it led to the breakup in the relationship. So talk a little bit about that.
I guess I can share a little bit about my last relationship earlier this year. I would say that love bombing prevented me from seeing the red flags, right?
You said love bombing?
Yes.
You guys know what love bombing is? You want to explain what that is real quick?
So it's usually whenever you meet someone and you're dating, in the beginning stages, they're overly affectionate, overly attentive. I mean, going all out. If they realize that you love nice things, whatever the things are, they go above and beyond. It's overly exerted, right? And what happens then is that you are kind of blindsided. And most of the time you'll realize, too, that they're very much like, 3 weeks into dating, they're like, oh my God, I think I'm falling in love. And you're like, right? People who are just very much insistent on immediately meeting you and overwhelming you with every aspect of them so that you can choose them, all right? And so I would say that in that experience, being in that, oh my God, he's so handsome, he kind of checks everything on the list and the whole shebang bang, I was blindsided, right, to the red flag. And the red flag would just be emotionally unavailable, which then led to him being controlling, right? So because we were dating, and because everything was kind of great, and I was, he was opening the doors, right? He was listening, he was responding on time, he was attentive. It eventually caused me to kind of lean back or lean away from what my values are, what my non-negotiables are, which would be an emotionally available man. Right? And so I didn't necessarily get to see that this wasn't someone who was willing to work on his emotions, wasn't willing to talk about issues and sit and explore and deal with it so that we can move forward. Right? And it eventually, when I finally realized, hold up, whenever I would say, hey, this is troubling me or bothering me, it would be, okay, I hear you, and then it just goes right back to what it was. Right? It didn't matter if I acknowledged the issue via text. It didn't matter if I sat with him and conversed. It didn't matter what I did. It would be like, yeah, I hear you, and then there was nothing ever done about it, regardless of how many times I brought it up. And being a therapist, I tried. I was like, let me write a letter. I was like, all right, let me send a voice note. I think at one point, like most of us did, I wrote like a whole one-pager. I was like, these are our issues. These are the ways that, right? And each time he's like, yeah, great. Okay, so, what are we going to do on Friday or Saturday? Or when are you going to meet my mom? Or like anything to get you away from the fact that we're having these set of issues that are happening, and we consistently get back to, and for an example of one of the issues was, it would always be him being intentional about us doing what it is that he wanted us to do. And the things that I felt was important would always be on the back burner, right? And so we would have these conversations over and over again, and he's like, yeah, I hear you, I see you. But let's do this, let's do all these things. But remember, in the meantime, he's also love bombing. So I'm not like being intentional about, wait a minute, slow down, this is not working. So eventually it took me some time, had to slow down, get in prayer and just say, okay, God, this looks good, it sounds good, but I am not happy. So evidently this cannot be your will for me. And when I eventually slowed down, I started to see for myself, wait a minute, this guy isn't emotionally available, right? And when we actually had 2 conversations where he owned up to it. He talked a little bit about his childhood and having to be, he's African, I'm African. And growing up in most African households, not all, back home, men aren't necessarily taught to deal with emotions, especially because he also grew up without his parents. His parents were here and he was back home. So, and he was the oldest. So being an oldest child in an African household, you don't have time for emotions. What do you mean you're sad? Your siblings are not taken care of. So all he knows how to do is go, do. If there's an issue, there isn't any sitting and talking about it. Either he would fight or whatever it is, but it was never dealing with the emotions. And at one point he was willing to go to therapy, but we would always circumvent back to the same issue. And I just realized it's not for me, right? I had to go back and remember, what are my non-negotiables? What are the values that I'm not willing to compromise on?
Yeah. So how long did it take from the time you met him to
figuring that out?
Figuring out, yeah.
It took November, December, January, February, March. It took about 5-6 months. Yeah.
How did it end? Like, what did you say? Did you set up a meeting? Did you tell him about himself?
So that was very interesting. And that actually, for me, that's an area that I grew up in, I've grown up in emotionally, so I'm proud of it, dealing with conflict, because I never liked conflict. But I've learned over the years, Apostle was laughing because we had this thing where him and one of our other leaders, Ryan, would always say to me, conflict is good. And I'm like, please, I don't want to hear that, right? But as you learn healthy conflict resolution, you realize that you can have conflict. You're supposed to with anyone you have any form of intimate relationship, whether it's platonic or romantic. So eventually, as I said to you before, I would send him paragraphs. I would sit and I'd converse with him, and once or twice we had a breakthrough where he acknowledged it, and we even searched for a therapist online for him. And then we just go right back to the same issue. So eventually, I remember just calling and saying, hey, we need to talk. Like, I just can't. This is the same thing over and over again. And his way of avoiding it, one of my girlfriends would laugh. He'd say, okay, yeah, great, we could talk about it. All right, I'm kind of busy right now, but can we talk about it? Like, he would just keep pushing the conversation away. So eventually I just sent a long paragraph, and I was like, this is not working. I don't know what else to tell you. Yeah. And then, of course, he responded. He was like, oh, you're going to try to break up with me on the phone, whatever. You know.
I thought you broke up over text.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that we broke up over text because I had already communicated that this wasn't working multiple times. So it wasn't the first time that he heard me say this wasn't working. It probably was the first time where I was like, I just can't do this anymore. And also because he was evading actual conversation about the fact that this isn't working.
Because some people hear this isn't working and think that, okay, how can I make it work? But they don't understand that you don't want to make it work, and they continue to make the relationship go, and then you got to be like stern with people and say, hey, listen, I don't want you anymore. This can't work anymore.
Wow.
And it's not easy. It's not easy because, of course, there's still like a good 40-50% that's like, oh, he has these qualities that I'm looking for, but then realizing what are my non-negotiables, right? When I have children, if this is someone I want to be the father of my children and he's not emotionally available, my kids are going to suffer. Yeah.
So you didn't think you could have made it work?
No, because I tried to the point where my friends were like, girl, please. So I actually appreciate that I'm not easy to give up on people. It takes a lot more effort, which is actually an area that I have to also work on, because sometimes that can cause me to hold on to things too long. So I definitely went above and beyond. I'm talking like months of like paragraphs of let's talk, and evading it, and it was just like, but it's not working.
And that could probably be a red flag too, like an avoidance red flag from him, because a lot of people don't want to be broken up with.
Absolutely.
So you will avoid it, and that'll become a red flag, and that's probably one of the common red flags as well. Some of the ones that we spoke about on our live.
Oh yeah. What was that? What do you call that?
We said one was behavioral patterns as well, and we said communication.
Yeah.
Could be a red flag.
Inconsistency
Could be one. And red flags are like, because I think we have to know the difference between red flags and what is it that I said earlier? A red flag and
Issue that can be worked
just
on.
like a flaw.
A flaw in a person.
So a red flag and a flaw. And there's a lot of people, they will see flaws, and because social media, everything's a red flag. Oh, he ain't opened up this door for me. That's a red flag.
Yeah.
He came and picked me up, and he was wearing these jeans on, and I told him he was going to. That's a red flag because he don't know how to dress. So we have to kind of
African.
No, that's a red flag.
That's a red flag.
No, but people will have all these things, or he wearing diapers. That's a red flag.
Oh God, that should be a red flag.
No, but I think society is labeled everything as a red flag.
Right.
Everybody's a narcissist. Everybody's this, everybody's that. And I think you have to determine what's an unhealthy pattern, what's an unhealthy behavior for you.
Yeah.
What is your number one non-negotiables? What are you not going to accept? What
good.
things are you going to put your foot down, right? Because these are warning signs that's going to save you from spending, 1, 2, 3, you said 6, 8 months?
5 to 6 months.
5 to 6 months in a relationship that God doesn't even want you in. But a lot of us is like, you know what? I'm going to pick up what God is telling me to put down, because I can kind of dust off this red flag, and I kind of change this person and make him emotionally unavailable by taking him to therapy, by talking to him more, by sending him articles, And sometimes when men see that, they're like, okay, this is too much for me. I can't handle this, right? And a lot of times we just have to walk away, if we are trying to make it work, because we don't want to give up on people.
But before we even talk about spotting the red flags, I think one of the things that I wanted to mention first and foremost is making sure that we are not the red flag. I think we always try to look at everyone else's faults and flaws, but even the Bible talks about before you look at the speck in somebody else's eye, make sure you look at the pole in your own eye, right? Look at yourself first. And so we need to make sure that we are healthy. We need to make sure that we are not the ones that are the red flag. And so how do you think a person even begins to identify like what their own personal issues are that might be creating the issues in their relationships?
I think a lot of it comes from, taking self-inventory from yourself. Because a lot of people, we go through relationships, we go through heartbreaks, and the first thing we do is we say, okay, well, I don't want a person like him. I don't want a person like her. You never say to yourself, what did I do wrong in that relationship? How can I become a better partner? How can I love better? Give and receive love better. So and that's a whirlwind of relationships. As soon as you leave one relationship, what happened? Or he was this, or she was this, or she was that. You know what? I don't want to find somebody like that anymore. What about you don't want to give somebody like you gave the person before? right? And we have to change our perspective on how we give and receive love. Because if we have that same mindset in every relationship, thinking that we're perfect, we're the best person in that relationship, everything was fine until you did this, then, you're never going to have a healthy relationship. You're never going to learn.
Yeah.
It's going to be just, a cycle or a roller coaster of just bad decisions. You're never growing. And I think on the last First Friday, but what I said was you have to meet the requirements, your requirements, right? You can't ask for something you're not willing to give. Now, if you're asking for something from someone and you're not willing to give it, that's a red flag, right? Because you're asking this person for honesty, love, commitment. I want you to be there for me. I want you to invest in me, but I'm not going to give you that because my ex lacked it, and I want you to give it to me, but I'm not going to give you that. That's a red flag.
Wow.
Right?
That's good.
You have to look from things from that perspective.
That's awesome. You guys taking notes? I love that. I think another factor is not having clear expectations, right? Everyone has, we need to know the difference between our wants versus our needs. Like, if you look at a plate of food, right, you could have, your wants could be the chocolate cake and the brownies, like, whatever your favorite dessert is. Everybody wants that, but what you need is the asparagus, the broccoli, the carrots, the vegetables. That's what you need. Your body literally needs the minerals and the vitamins inside of the vegetables to survive. You don't need chocolate cake. You don't need the sweets, but that's what we would desire more than the veggies. And I look at that even from a relational standpoint. A lot of times we get into relationships, or before we get into a relationship, we think about what we want. I want a man that's 6'2", tall, dark, and handsome, right? I want a girl with long hair. I want, a big butt, or whatever the thing is that we think we want in a person. But if you do get these things in a person, I don't know about you, but you'll never meet somebody who's been married for 20 years and said, oh, the reason why our marriage was successful is because he was tall. Or because her hair was long. None of those things that you want is actually what's going to sustain a relationship. It's the needs. It's the characteristics like the consistency, being reliable, being faithful, being able to communicate your emotions, being emotionally available. Those are the things that we need to be conscious of and aware of. Like, this is what I'm looking for. The aesthetics and the dessert, all of that can come and go. But what we really want is to know what those needs are, because those become the critical factors that allows us to see, hey, this is a red flag, because the basic minimum of having a person that is consistent and loyal, that person is not giving that to me. And I can identify and spot a red flag when I begin to notice that those things are missing.
What I would even add to that is, I know at that time when the relationship wasn't working out, I was seeing my therapist at that time. And my therapist and I did this beautiful worksheet that I use with my clients as well. Yes, I'm a psychotherapist who went to therapy. Therapy's for everybody.
Plug that in.
That's right.
So the worksheet, the first question on there is, what do I want my next relationship to look like? Followed by, what characteristics am I looking for? And then I think it was followed by, the characteristics that I'm looking for, do I offer them as well? And are they realistic?
I like that.
Right. And then I think the question after that was, out of all the characteristics that you listed, whether they're 10, 15, 20, if you were to take 100 and divide them, so I don't know if I'm explaining it right. So basically, if I wrote 10 things, I would have to make sure all 10 add up to 100. Right? So is emotional availability going to be 10% or 50%? Is handsome or tall going to be 10% or 5%? Is financially stable going to be, right? And so after you did that, that would help you to pick your top 5 non-negotiables. And then that was something that we decided to stick by. And I remember there would be times when we would have sessions and I would talk about, she's like, well, what are your non-negotiables? It used to be annoying then, but eventually it stuck.
Yeah.
Because you're not just making decisions from your emotions, but you're saying, well, what are the non-negotiables? What are the things that you said that you want and you're not negotiating? It doesn't matter if it's silly to someone else. If it's non-negotiable for you because you've sat and you've done the work for you, then that's kind of what you go by, right? And then the background to that too is doing some family work, some family of origin work, where you sit and ask yourself, what is the family that I came from? And what is the type of family that I want? And that'll also help you to decide on what your non-negotiables are.
And also,
Good.
too, when you have that, it allows people to respect your boundaries, right? Because a lot of times when you don't have these non-negotiables and you're just lackadaisical in your dating experience, you allow people to take advantage of your boundaries, and unconsciously you start putting down your boundaries because you still want to be loved. And a lot of people with dating, and the longer it takes to date, the longer it takes to find someone, we unconsciously start to let down our boundaries because we feel as if these boundaries are too strong. And maybe this is what's keeping men away. This is what's keeping women away. So we start to lower our standards, we start to lower our boundaries, and before you know it, you're accepting red flags, or you're coloring these red flags white. Or you're saying, you know what, this is not a red flag, this is a flaw. You start kind of adjusting your mind, and that's how you try to convince yourself that people is right for you when they're not right for you, they're wrong for you. And then you stay with these people for long and long and long. You're like, what went wrong? It went wrong because you started lowering down your boundaries. You started giving people parts of you too early. You started investing yourself in a relationship that wasn't for you. And now you're broken, confused, hurt, and you're crying, and you're praying to God, and God says, you know what, listen, you was rushing everything.
Yeah.
A lot of times we rush love because we're tired. We're tired. A lot of people, you see married couples, you see that somebody's married, like, you know what, God, 2023 was my year. It's December, and nobody probably had a successful relationship yet. You never went on a date. You still think that ain't no good man out there, but when you entered, when it was 2022, December, you was like, you know what, 23 is going to be my year. January came, December, June. You never found a good date. You never even found a good man or woman. Now you're going to have the same prayer going into 2024.
Yeah.
But you have to write down, like, what's different? What can you do differently?
Yeah, I love that.
How can you show up differently?
That's
right?
good,
Like,
there.
how can you approach this whole dating thing a little bit differently? Because whatever's you've been doing for the last 5 to 10 years ain't working. Maybe you need to move out of state. Maybe you need to go somewhere else.
No, man,
But
that's
you have to adjust it.
That's what I feel like. There's so many people who are afraid because if they have bad dating experiences, there's like, I'm not going to do anything. But not doing anything is going to lead to nothing, right? So it's not about not doing anything. It's about, or not going out on a date. It's about what can I do differently. And this is what we're hoping. Like, how many of you in here are single right now? Like, I'm single, more single than a dollar bill. All right, so we got hands, hands around. All right.
4 quarters.
Oh, perfect. So, like, one of the things that I think what you just said, Priscilla, that was so interesting and I love is I believe in a list. I believe in a list. I know there's people who are saying otherwise. I created a list when I was single. I was dating different women. And I remember the last person I dated before I met my wife. I went out with her. Nothing happened. I knew I wasn't going to go back out with her. And then I stopped and I asked myself, what am I looking for? Meaning, what am I looking for in a wife? Yeah. I never asked myself that question. I thought that I would just go out with different women and then I'll possibly see someone that I'll say, oh, this person is cool. This person might be my wife. But I realized up until that moment, I didn't know what I was looking for in a wife. I'm not just looking for a date. I was looking for a wife, right? There's people who are just going out to date for different reasons. And that's another thing. You got to make sure that there's a mutual understanding of the person that you're going out on a date with. And I feel like you should ask those questions before you even have a date. You know what I'm saying? There's some people who might want to go out just because they want to sleep with you. Yeah. That's it. If that's not what you're doing, there's no reason to go out. So these are things that you need to kind of investigate and know before you go out on a date. So I knew I wanted a wife, but I didn't know what I was looking for in a wife. So when I went out with these different women, I was going out blind. So I paused and I took out a sheet of paper and I wrote down, what are the 10 things that I need my wife to have? What are the 10 characteristics that I knew I needed in a wife? And I wrote my 10. Saved it, left it there. From that point on, any female that I met, if she didn't meet one of these 10 requirements, there was no date. That was me. I was going to save time. I was going to save money by not taking somebody out that I knew there was no future with. It gave me so much focus. It gave me so much clarity. I meet a woman. Oh, one of my non-negotiables was she cannot be disrespectful. Yeah. Disrespectful to me, disrespect was an immediate turnoff. Whether it was not only to me, to anybody. If I see you talk crazy to the bus driver, I'm like, oh, this is not my wife, because my wife would not be that way. You get what I'm saying? So I needed to create that list. Once I knew what I wanted, I didn't go out with anybody else. And I promise you, Keishorne, 4 months later, I met my wife.
So that means 4 months soon, I'm going to meet my husband.
You made that list?
I did.
All right.
I'll come back and let y'all know.
But it was so important that I got clarity first. I got really clear about what I wanted and what I looked for in a wife. So when I met her and she lined up, all that was left for me was to pull the trigger and to move forward with what I wanted and what I needed.
And the thing about it too is, like, similar to my story, when I was engaged about probably 15 years ago, before I met my wife, I made a list, but my list was the opposite. My list was for me, because I realized that I was the red flag and I was the problem. And I said to myself, in order for me to be a good man, right, a man of God, right, because I have to be clear. We have to be clear what we want, right? You have to say, are you a Christian or not? Right? You just got to be honest. Are you saved or not? Are you out here to sleep with everybody, or are you looking for something serious? Are you dating for recreational use, or you really want a man or woman of God? Right? Because we're in here, we read the Bible, we talk a good game, but when you're out there dating, we don't know what you're doing behind those clickers. We don't know what you're doing behind Instagram. We don't know who DM you sliding into. Yep. So you have to be serious with yourself. So what I did is I created a whole entire list of the things that I wanted to do, the man that I wasn't, who I wanted to become, because I realized that I was tired of hurting people and hurting myself. And if I was going to continue to be a red flag, then I need to change this flag color. And how I'm going to do that is by creating a plan or a system so I can transition from a boy into a man. And the way I was operating as a child, I wasn't going to be a successful husband. I wasn't going to be a successful boyfriend. I wasn't going to be a successful son, a nephew, or uncle, or anyone. And it doesn't just stop at a husband. You got to be a good man. That's right. You got to be a good person. So I started like fixing and working on the relationships that I had with my mom. I had a relationship with my brother, my sister, and everybody else, because it was a reflection of the man that I'm going to show up as, as a husband. Come on. So when I was going through that whole system, I said, you know what? You are angry, right? You are a little aggressive. So I started reading verses in the Bible that was tackling those red flags and those things that I had. And then one by one, I started like chopping them off, until I recognized who I was meant to be, right? Because who I was performing to be wasn't getting nowhere. This man was stuck. So a lot of us, we have personality traits and characteristics, and we have these sayings that we always say, this is who I am, but this is not who God wants you to be. This is who you are, is like your worldly view, and you with your friends. Well, this is who I am. This is how I grew up. I'm a little gangster and a little sanctified. We get all that, but you more sanctified or gangster, or you more gangster than sanctified? Because if you're more gangster than sanctified, then you definitely going to curse out the bus driver. You're definitely going to do these ratchet things, and then you're going to go to work saying, you know what, girl, they tested my faith. No, hey, don't bite. You failed. You failed. Right. So you have to ask yourself this question: who do you want to show up as? Who do you want to become, and who do you want to leave behind? Because the person that wants to be married, the person that wants a relationship, the person who wants not even a long marriage, because red flags show up in marriages too. What do you have to get rid of? Crucify. What do you have to crucify in order to become a better person so you are dateable? so you are approachable. And so you can let things, we all have these things. And I'm happy, this is December 1st. You have a fresh new start. We have like 31 days.
Yeah.
This is December 1st. So you can pray every single day. You can even speak to, I'm not a pastor, Vernel, set up a system. We could probably do a 31, because First Friday, we could do a 31 day of prayer or whatever, we can do. So you can drop things off or cut things off and say, you know what, I don't want to show up as this person in 2024. I'm tired. I'm just sick and tired of showing up as this person. I need to become somebody better. I need to do things differently. I need to hang around more friends. I need to be involved in different things. Married, single, widow, whatever it may be. I need to do something differently. And I think when you identify your red flags, maybe that's what we got to do. Identify your red flags and see where you need to work on, what you need to crucify in your life in order for you to really live your best life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, we at Borkor Psychotherapy Services can help you identify your red flag.
For a shameless fee of $9.99. For a shameless fee.
But on a more serious note, my practice also, it has two versions. There's Borkor Psychotherapy Services, and then there's Therapy Meets Jesus. So we have specifically a branch just for Christians. So I know most of the times I meet a lot of people like me who are like, I want a therapist, but I want a Christian-based one, similar to if Apostle here is counseling you, right? Then similar to that. So I would encourage you to, with your therapist, whether it's with my practice or whatever therapist you'd like to go with, that is a place where you can find out what your red flags are, right? By pausing and just asking yourself, what are my triggers, right? What are the things that easily get me hyper or hypo-aroused? Hyper is fight or flight, and hypo is to disassociate and get numb. So when am I always either fight or flight, or when am I always disassociating and getting numb? Right? Disassociating and getting numb isn't necessarily disappearing. You can physically be here, but you've checked out. So that's a way to figure out your red flag. Pausing and saying, what triggers me? What takes me out of my rationale and my calm? The concept is called window of tolerance. What takes me out of my window of tolerance and takes me above or below that window? And that's a good way to find your red flags.
Wow. So just think about what your red flag might be. For some people, it might be, mine was selfishness, right? I was selfish. That's a red flag. Being too into yourself. Being too controlling. Do you have controlling tendencies? For some people, it might be substance abuse.
It might be trying to fix people. A lot of us, we try to fix people.
Trying to fix people.
You want to be a superhero, I know that he's good or she's good, but they got this one little problem, like the cards that we just did. A lot of people might try to fix the person with the diaper, right? You might trust the person with a kisser. But it's the truth. You might try to fix the band name, right? That, you know what, you are perfect, but this right here just needs to be fixed a little bit. And the thing about that is you'll spend years and decades trying to fix someone that you're not supposed to be with.
Yeah.
And then you're like, God, man, I need you, show up in my life. Show me that he's not for me. I showed you years ago, but you wanted to go with the genocide warts. But the cards are true, though. These cards are true. Like, you see these two good things, and before you know it, you see the one bad thing, and a lot of us, we laugh about it, but behind closed doors, your mind starts thinking, and then you start trying to fix things. You know what? It's not that bad. And the problem is, a lot of us, we have friends with unsaved people, and they give us unsaved answers. Oh, yeah. And now we have to live the unsaved life with the unsaved consequences.
Girl, he got an island on the Bahamas.
Yeah, they're going to give you the unsaved answer. Uh-huh. And then you got to live with them unsaved consequences.
Wow.
Another red flag can be unresolved trauma. Right?
That's a huge one.
I would challenge all of us to pause and ask, kind of allow God to walk you through from childhood until now. And just take in an inventory of you and how you've showed up, when you checked out. Some of us are physically adults, but mentally we're still children, right? When trauma happens, sometimes we disassociate from our bodies. So not saying that you're there, but every one of us has had an experience that has affected how you show up, right? So I would challenge you to also identify what your traumas are and then challenge them and replace and reframe them.
That's a good one. You know why? Because I always tell people we still operate in the 14, 15, 16-year-old you, because a lot of us, we bring the same red flags. For example, when I teach this mentoring class on Thursdays, and the best believe these 12, 13-year-olds, they're dating, they're in relationship, they're fornicating, it's crazy out there for these children.
Jesus.
And then when you speak to them, they're like, oh, she broke up with me, oh, she hurt me, or X, Y, Z. And they know red flags. They're like, oh, she was a red flag because she was playing in another guy's hair or whatever. But it might be funny.
Wow.
But they're going to use that same thing from 13, 14, 15 until they're 20. Anytime they see little things, it's going to become a red flag. And in their head now, they're kind of programming themselves already to see what they don't like and what's wrong, but they're not healing. Because think about it, who are they getting advice from? Their classmates.
13,
They 13, 14, they're not getting advice from their parents. Their parents don't even know they're in relationships or fornicating or doing anything. They're going and having these conversations in bathrooms with their friends, in the hallways with their friends, on PS5, Fortnite, and they're having these dialogues, and they think it's safe, and they think they're getting some advice out of it. They're not getting anything out of it. What they're doing is brewing more issues because they're going to go to therapy one day, and they're going to hurt women out there, they're going to hurt men, and everybody's going to get hurt until they get real advice.
Yeah. And I guess another red flag will be similar to that, but unresolved past relationships, right? So you're holding on to the baggage of a previous relationship, but then trying to move into another one, right? So now you, in that situation, you're constantly comparing the person you're with the person you were with. And so whenever someone keeps bringing up the past, bringing up another person, that you're not over. If you're doing that, you're not over the last person. And that's a red flag for you. And for the other person, if you see that, like this person is not over their ex. You know what I mean? And this is where you have to now use wisdom, and you have to prioritize your own emotional well-being and your own safety. And then you begin to say, you know what, I'm going to create some distance because I can tell like you're still dealing with this, right? And that's where we have to be bold enough and courageous enough to be able to put our foot down and establish those boundaries and set the tone in a relationship. And watch this. A red flag does not have to mean the destruction of the relationship. Sometimes you can recognize a red flag and bring it up to somebody and bring it to their awareness. And you know what? That can cause the person to reflect and say, you know what? You're right. And can trigger them to pursue healing and work on themselves. And you never know. That person could heal and become the right person now as a result of you making it clear to them that this is an issue and that's a problem. Right? So we say all that to say, and I want to give room for you guys to have, if you have any questions. But I want you guys to maybe think about situations that you might have been in or might be in right now. And if you have a question about a red flag, I just want you to raise your hand. We're going to ask Hannah to come and help us out. So if you have any questions about red flags, maybe it's for you, maybe it's for a friend that you know. You don't want to say it's you want to say it's your friend. But whatever that is,
for a friend?
You're asking for a friend. We're going to take a few questions. So if there's any questions about red flags of any sort, we want to give room for that really quickly. We love questions. So anyone? All right, we got one right here. So think about your questions, guys.
How do you know the difference between a red flag and a check engine light? That's the question.
That's good. You want me to go? I think for me, so check engine light, it could be similar. I think the check engine sign, it lets you know there is a potential problem. I think that one of the things that we have to recognize for us is like God has given us a gift of discernment or our intuition. And I think that a lot of times we neglect when intuitively we sense and we know something is off, but then we ignore it, right? And for me, that's what that check engine light is. So being aware of, okay, I'm not comfortable here. I don't know why. I remember, for example, I was one female that I met, and we were on the phone talking, and I felt the strongest conviction that I ever felt in my life talking to the person. It was just like God was telling me, hang up, stop talking to her. She didn't give me any reason why I shouldn't talk to her. I just felt in my spirit that I shouldn't be talking to her. So after like trying to ignore it for about half an hour, I just said, can I call you back? And I hung up the phone, and I had to stop and ask myself, like, was this me, or maybe that's the devil trying to prevent me from talking to this person? So I tried to call back again. About 10 minutes later, the same conviction came back on me. I had no reason why I shouldn't talk to the person except for this strong feeling of a no. I called her again, same thing. 5 minutes later, I said, I'll have to call you back. And I hung up the phone. I never got a chance to talk to her ever again. Now, for me, I could have ignored that check engine light. I could have ignored that feeling. See, I want you guys to know something, right? You guys have 3 brains. You have 3 brains. You have a brain in your head. You have a brain in your heart. You have a brain in your stomach. And oftentimes, when your brain, logically, you may not wrap your mind around something, but then deep down in your gut, you feel something is off. That's God oftentimes warning you or giving you wisdom. Out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. God will speak through you in your stomach. And then sometimes you have this feeling in your gut, but then also your heart is telling you that something isn't right. Or maybe your heart is telling you to pursue something. But all these senses that you have, we need to learn how to discern when it is that God, because if we're Christians especially, we need to trust the Holy Spirit that's living on the inside of us. We need to be Spirit-led in our connections and led by the Spirit in our relationships. And stop trying to force things to happen or force things to manifest. When God is telling you no, no. And trust the no that God puts in your spirit, because God is also looking after you. So I gave you a really long answer for sometimes the red flags are more in your face. And you see a stop sign, you know to stop. Whereas the check engine light, you can still drive. You can still go, but eventually that's going to surface as a problem later on. So I think of the red flags as a little bit more immediate, whereas the check engine light is more of like a warning in your heart, inside of you, that maybe your moral compass is pointing out something that is off.
And I would even like to add that another way to add to what Pastor Apostle was just saying was, when the check engine light, right, it's flashing, and there's a joke around about how most women, when you're driving and it flashes, you're like, whatever, it doesn't exist. Probably I'll do the same. But what I'm trying to allude to is, with the check engine light flashing, right, it's usually personally for you to identify your own red flags or for the other person. But one of the things I want to throw in there too is control, right? And I'm saying that in terms of sometimes when we identify red flags, because Apostle, you just said that sometimes a red flag isn't a deal breaker, and you're right. But that's if when that check engine light comes on and the person is willing to address it, right? I think that's the difference that I would add to being able to identify when in fact something is a deal breaker as a red flag and when it's not. Because sometimes you address the issue, you see it, and the person has the willingness to change. And then sometimes, as you were just saying, Keishorne, that they just go ahead and you try to change the person. You try to say, this is how you can be better. So I would say that if you identify it and the person is willing to address it.
And two, a lot of people don't know they have a red flag until you tell them sometimes. That's it. Right? Like you said, like you have to, and then.
Because they get away with it sometimes.
Exactly. And sometimes they don't even know. They've been doing it so long. It's when you do that self-inventory and say, you know what? Everybody's been telling me this, because a lot of people used to tell me, oh, you're angry or you're this or you're that. And then I said, you know what? I guess this is affecting everybody around me. It's affecting my relationships. Maybe it is me. right? I think a lot of people, sometimes we have to say, maybe it is me.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm the red flag. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm the common denominator. And a lot of people don't like to say that.
Right.
Because it's like admitting that something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And it's also admitting to the other person that they're right. And we hate to tell people that they're right. Like, you're right about me. I do have an anger problem. I do talk too much. I should be a little bit more kind or caring or loving or whatever it may be, right? Or maybe I should listen to you more. I remember when one of my red flags when I first got married was my wife used to ask me where I was going. I'm like, okay, I gotta tell you where I'm going. Like, what? But then I realized that that's a form of respect, and I'm being disrespectful, not telling my wife that where I'm going.
Right.
And it's not that you're checking on me; it's that a safety concern. You got to know where I'm going in case something happens, and it's not me being like defiant.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we have to kind of do that self-inventory and check. I would have answered the question first, but I just got my license like probably a year ago, so I don't know check engine light is. That was a little button or something like that.
I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah. Come on.
So I'm thinking of the term red flag, and just like the term I love you, the use of it has been so congested, in the social arena where it's almost become, the impact of it is like almost nil. It virtually means nothing. Everybody is like, I love you, yeah, son, and things like that. But in terms of a red flag, it seems more like red flags are not red anymore. They're sort of like orange and yellow because, a red flag is actually supposed to depict something that's a danger, a possible danger to you, and to pay attention to this thing. This is something that can derail you and possibly, destroy whatever it is that you may think that you want,
Right.
in your future. And this is the reason that it's red. And then, you have the other de-escalating colors, to let you know that it's okay and so forth and so on. And so I'm saying that to say that I believe that we should really give true definition to what this is and prioritize it, right? If it's a red flag, let it be red and not be a cute little thing that it's okay for, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then, and so when we create these boundaries, then we'll immediately know whether or not we should allow that to keep walking, or if it's not really a red flag per se, then it's something that we may be able to explore to see if we can push past it. But, outside of that, I think identification, and clarity is what brings about a greater, possibility for future engagements.
That's good.
So something that came up as you were speaking then for me was vulnerability, right? And I think that's key because you said that many people aren't aware of their red flags, or they're not willing to accept it unless it's, eventually it's brought up maybe once, twice, or many times. So I wanted to would like for you two to speak on vulnerability and number one, we kind of know why that is such a sensitive issue for both men and women, but especially more men in my experience. But also then, how does one then bring up these things to the, their partner that they're with, specifically in my case, like a man. If I'm dating a guy and knowing that vulnerability is an issue for a lot of men, how do you then bring up this red flag without this person immediately, putting up their walls? I recall, a school that I'm currently in as a wellness coach, one of the male figures there, we were talking about starting a wellness group for the men, because there are not many of the male teachers and we want them to support each other. And I'll never forget, I think we called it men. It was a really cool name, he liked it, but I said, this will give the men an opportunity to be vulnerable. He was like, whoa, vulnerable. Like he kind of like, that was the end. He was like, well, you lost me there, we're done. Right? But I do appreciate it because afterwards he came back to me separately and he said the word vulnerability is triggering for him. right? And we never really got to expand or explore in it, but I think that there are a lot of men who still associate vulnerability with some sort of weakness or frailty or something. So I would like for you to expand on that.
Yeah, I think it starts with creating a safe space. But before even having the safe space, a lot of people talk at men rather than talking with us. And I think we have to have a nice vulnerable space where we're having a discussion, not targeting issues and problems that we're having.
Say that again, because I think that flew over a few people's heads
No,
right there.
I forgot what I said again.
Women have a tendency of talking at
no,
men.
yeah.
You got, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just saying it. Yeah, but talking at us. And a lot of times when a man says, oh, it's triggering for me, it's because the previous person or environment he was in wasn't welcoming. And maybe he wasn't at that point. I believe that a lot of times us men, we have to be at a certain point in order to accept or receive change or even advice. Because you just can't come to us just like that and say, hey, I need you, you got to change. Even to this day, my wife, she says something, I'll be defensive. I'm automatically on protective mode. Like, oh, here we go again. But to the story that I told you before, when I wanted to change from a boy into a man, what I did was I saw the problem in me. Like, I knew that there was a problem. I knew that I couldn't continue like this. And my brother, what you said was excellent about the red flag. I was a red, dark red. And I knew that it was a danger. No, it was a danger. And the reason why it was a danger and what it would affect, it was going to affect my faith, my life, children that I might have, my family's relationships, everything. That's why it was red. It's because it was red because it was detrimental. And it probably would have, I probably wouldn't even be here today because anger and all that hate and all that not loving who you are and appreciating who you are and talking to different women, I was a menace to myself. So in order for me to become a better man or even to receive that, I had to be in a place to accept it. You have to be in a place to accept it. You have to get to that point. Every man has to get to that point. I believe a lot of men, we get to that point of, you know what, I'm ready. I'm ready for a little change, and it might be hard, it might be difficult. I might cry, I might be vulnerable, it might trigger a little things, but my healing is better than this slow death that I'm experiencing. And a lot of us, we experience these slow deaths, men and women, and it hurts. And I've been there, and you don't know what to do. You cry, you get upset, and men do cry. We do get upset, and we do want somebody to talk to. I have friends that I can speak to, and I say, hey, man, I'm hurting today. Today's not a good day, because I trust them. And I trust you enough that you're not going to go back and tell somebody else. I trust you enough that you're not going to bring it up again.
Yeah.
I trust you enough that you're not going to say, well, man, remember last time you was crying on the phone? Not even in a jokingly way, because if a man hears it in a jokingly way, I might laugh at you now, but then when I get home, I'll say, this guy's fake. I need some new friends. And now I have a new battle. But now I have a new battle. Now I'm not even battling with myself anymore. I'm battling with the people close to me. And then when you talk about vulnerability in a meeting, the first thing I'm going to say is, oh, that's triggering for me. Yeah. Why? Because the last friend I spoke to didn't understand me. My secrets wasn't safe. Yeah. My vulnerability wasn't safe. My tears wasn't safe. Yeah. So a lot of times we need to create a really safe space where it's not too much men. You know, we're talking, we're being, we're talking about our issues, we're talking about how we can help each other, and we leave that door and we don't even talk about it. We don't even bring it up, hey man, you want to talk about your problem? No, I just want to be vulnerable enough to say, hey man, I'm having this issue with pornography. I'm having this issue with lusting after women. I have an issue, man, and right now this issue is killing me slowly, and I'm slowly dying, and I have nobody to talk to. So we have to be vulnerable to say, you know what? I'm in pain. I'm hurting. Can you help me? You know, I don't know if anybody. I'm gonna close with this. I don't know if anybody see that show called Amsterdam. It is so good. Because the medical doctor, he says one thing that changes everybody's life. How can I help? And I think that we all have to, we all need those friends that's, how can I help without judgment? Like, how can I help? I don't care what you're going through, but how can I help you? But we have to be vulnerable enough to say, you know what, this is how you can help me. And trust is a big thing, and it's hard for us to trust people. But we have to kind of let down those boundaries.
And I think to add to that, is the importance of bonding around friendship first. A lot of times when women meet a man, especially when they like them, you're thinking boyfriend, husband. Skip the friendship. And it's that friendship that makes that man feel comfortable enough to have an open conversation with you, because in friendship, there is no judgment. A friend loves at all times, the Bible says. So if I'm comfortable enough to be vulnerable with you and to share things with you, ladies, that is a major win, a major plus. Because if that man feels safe enough, he sees you as a friend, that means that man now knows that I can trust you with my secrets. And from that foundation of a friendship, that's where romance and marriage can begin to blossom, because friendship is the cornerstone of marriage.
I just have a question, because everyone likes transparency. Everyone likes to be transparent. Is a red flag being transparent too soon? Is that a red flag? Like, you just let everyone know everything too soon. Is that a red flag?
You want to answer it?
On that as well, just a little while ago. I believe that sometimes, we have to use common sense in terms of how we interact with other people socially. Because you don't want to tell just someone that you just met merely because you want to have a relationship, everything that ever happened to you, and, expose yourself to anything from ridicule to, whatever may happen. And so, we have to have these boundaries. But the whole point of having a relationship with someone else is because you want to be happy. You want to give and receive love. You want to grow to have a family with this person, raise children, and have as great as time that you possibly can while you're on the planet, and having as many memories as you can build that you can hold as treasures when you can't really do too much anymore physically, And so it's beyond that. So I believe that communication is the key to everything. Have conversations. They don't all have to be loaded with so much emotion. Let's just speak about different things. I used to go to the museum, because I live right across the street from Botanical Gardens, and the museum and the library and so forth. And, I can tell you how my mother used to pick us up every day from school and go there, and how I enjoyed that and so forth. And that doesn't have any baggage about relationships I had in the past. I'm sharing a memory. I'm sharing something beautiful and good that was with me and that I felt, and I shared it with you, and then you share one back. And then we begin to build, and because now this experience that we had of sharing our past memories become this new memory that we created, and it's an experience for us. And this is how you grow in a relationship. This is how you begin to build. Everything doesn't have to be charged with so much tension. Oh, no, that's the part of communication. You communicate, but, it doesn't, have to be, something that's combative, because most of the time it seems like a lot of relationships have been reduced to what I call the Jerry Springer effect, or, the Maury effect. Everything turns into this, ratchet screaming and, throwing drinks and so forth, and, it's not necessary when the reality is you really just want somebody that you can love and look in their eyes and see that they love you back, and it's like a real thing, and you got somebody with you and you know that they got you, and everything's beautiful, even the bad times, because it's beautiful together though. You know what I mean? It's just like that. Now anyway, that's mine.
I just wanted to add to the question, to the answer, and that was great. When it comes to sharing vulnerability, I believe that it should be a two-way street. So if we're going down the street together, it just can't be me sharing these deep things from my life, and after I share, you just go and you start talking about, all right, well, so what's the appetizers? You know what I mean? Like, if we're going there, we're going to both go there together. So that way I know that we're sharing intimacy now. So if it's getting to an intimate level conversation, it cannot just be one-sided, because that is a red flag if a person deflects personal questions. They're asking you for personal questions, but they're not sharing their own. That's a red flag, because that lack of open communication means that that person is hiding something from you.
And also, too, you have to understand, too, that dating is gathering information. So when people is asking you questions, they're just trying to see if you're a fit for their life and if they're a fit for your life. So it's like a back and forth. It's like a resume. It's like a job, because you're spending the rest of your life with this person. So when they're asking you questions, don't feel afraid to ask questions, too, because as much as they're trying to see if you can fit into their life, you want to see if he could fit into your life, too. So, and information changes situations. That's why the information that you get will change the situation to see if we can move forward. And the information that you give as well can also change the dynamic of the relationship. And it's a good thing, too, because now you can kind of weave out who's right for you, who's not right for you, so you don't waste time on the wrong person.
It's good. All right, we have two more. Let's see, two more.
Really quickly, the reason why I would see that as a red flag is two things. Number one, I've watched a video of this guy who did a really good job of breaking it down, of his knowledge of men that he knows who purposely go on these dates, right? And they wait to hear the woman spew everything about herself, and then they start becoming that guy purposely. So I would say be mindful of oversharing. There's nothing wrong with wanting to, get comfortable and converse, but pace yourself with how much you share. Because if they're asking you certain questions as, what are the kind of things you're looking for and all these things, it's cute. I would say keep it at a minimum. Right? Let me find out if who I'm looking for is you. You just be you, and I'll figure it out. But I have definitely seen and heard and watched several men say it is a thing that a lot of guys do, where they take the information and they become that person just so that they can waste your time, basically, right? So there's that aspect. And then the other aspect, too, could just be a lack of, better yet, insecurities. Sometimes there's a pick-me behavior, where we feel like if we just give, then they'll pick you. So finding the balance between that, right? Not spewing so much, not sharing so much, and then pacing yourself, whether it's, out of pick-me behavior or whatever, but just being mindful of, I am enough, and I can pace myself, and if I am in fact what they want, that's fine. If not, I'm cool with that too.
That's good.
I just wanted to clarify something, so I can get, more clarity. So when I said like the check engine light, right? Like normally when the check engine light comes on, it means there's something wrong with the car, right? So my question was, like, how do you know if you see something as a red flag, or it's actually something wrong with you? Because you touched on like the trauma, right? Like being able to identify like that this is your trauma showing up and it's not the person. So that's what I meant by red flag. So like, how are you able to discern when it's a red flag or if it's your stuff?
Oh, gotcha.
Well, I would assume that if you've done the work, right? And if you haven't done the work yet, I would challenge you to do the work. What does the work just look like? It looks like with your therapist or with yourself or with your pastor or with your coach, just sitting and just literally do a quick timeline of your life, right? From childhood until now, right? And just start asking yourself, what are the things that happened to me? What are the major life events? The reason why this is important is because you want to see where your most deeply held assumptions about yourself are. One of the things I ask clients to do is make absolutist statements. I am, the world is, people are. Right? And that'll start helping you to realize what are your most deeply held assumptions about yourself, the world, and other people. This will then help you to eventually identify your own character flaws, your own behaviors, maybe places where you disassociated with yourself. Why is this important? Because then when the check engine light comes on, you can be able to identify, wait a minute, this is just a distorted lens through which I'm looking at this person. So it's not necessarily a red flag. It's my own trauma going off. And it's something that I'm continuing to work on. right? This way, when you do say to a person, I'm seeing these red flags or I'm seeing these flaws and I'd like you to work on it, it's because I've taken time to check in with me and I've made sure that this is not just my own trauma resurfacing or being reenacted.
That's awesome.
And also too, yeah, excellent. And also too, a lot of times we go into relationships, and then as soon as we get out that relationship, we don't work on ourselves, right? And I think that's the part that I'm talking about. You have to work on you. We jump from relationship to relationship to relationship, trying to find love in other people without spending time with yourself. There's something special when you spend time with yourself. You get to know who you are and whose you are, right? And I always tell people that you get to know who you are from a personality, a characteristic, and then you get to know whose you are from a God and a Jesus aspect. When I was going through my issue, I got to know who I was as a man and whose I was. When I realized whose I was, then I really wanted to become who I really meant to be. A lot of us can't find ourselves is because we don't know who we are, whose we are, or even where we are in our life. But when all three of those are in alignment, right, with spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical, that's when you start figuring out when things are going wrong in your life, because now you're more self-aware, you're more cautious on a spiritual level, emotional level, and a physical level. And when you have all three of those things, you're unstoppable, because nobody can tell you who you are or who you're not, because they don't define you. You know your issues, and you know how you're working through your issues, and you know when these triggers come, it's always how you respond to it, not what happens to you. So when the check engine light come on, different people can respond to that differently. People can panic. People can get afraid, right? But when you're going through your own issues and you're self-aware, it's not what happens to you. It's always how you respond to it. You respond to your things differently than you would before.
It's awesome, man.
I'll pass the mic to you, but
Wait, right here. Yeah, somebody right here. And then, okay. Yeah, she had a hand up.
Hi. So something that I've come across with my friends and even myself is this thing where you go out on a date, and as a Christian, you tell the other person, like they ask you, like, do you see yourself getting married? Yes. Do you see yourself, engaging in any intimacy? And then I ask, like, what does that intimacy entail? And usually I'm already, like, thinking to myself, like, this person is about to say, like, sexual intimacy. So then I am quick to say, like, if I'm going out on a date with someone, I just want them to know flat out that I'm not planning to have sex before marriage, right? And some of my friends have said the same thing on, either second date, third date. And quickly the guy will say, well, are you thinking about having sex at some point, right? And then my response is like, no, because I'm a Christian and those are my beliefs. So my question to you is, do you think it's okay for somebody to state that, like for myself or my friends, to be that, flat out, like, listen, I'm not going to have sex before marriage? Or is that something that we should, like, wait to state? Is it, when is it too soon, or when is it,
That's easy.
That's easy, right? I mean,
It's not easy.
I want to commend you, and I want to celebrate you and your friends for, choosing abstinence and doing it the right way. It's never too soon. I think the conversation gets there. You go there, you make it clear, that's a non-negotiable. And I believe that it causes you to stand out even more. And it will cause the man that's right for you to respect you and value you, because they recognize that you are not like everyone else. And I think that you should definitely continue to be bold about that and not shy away from that, because there are also men out there that are not looking to have sex before marriage, because they also know the repercussions and ramifications of that, and they want to do things God's way. So.
Now, my only thing about that, too, is I have to say this, that when I'm going on dates with guys who think this way, they automatically think, like, negative, because for them, it's like, well, they already know from my online information that it states that I have a child, right? So their assumption is already like, well, you had sex outside of marriage before, so why are you now wanting to go back and be like this innocent, woman of, Christ? I don't really believe it, kind of thing. That's what I usually get from the guys. Like, how do I even address that?
You want to answer that?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think two things, right? The first thing is that you answer the way you answered it before. You answer for every time, right? Like tell them, like, no, I'm not having sex until marriage. That's it. You don't need an explanation. It's not their problem, right? That's your life. So when you're talking about like I don't want to have sex until marriage, and they keep going like back and forth, cancel it. Like it's over. Like I'm going to the bathroom. Go to the bathroom. Like you don't have to stick around for that. I think what you have to realize, and your only problem is that you're rare, right? And when you're rare, it's like a rare jewel. Men and women, right, who are Christians, who are not, think about it, not having sex until marriage. Let's say that to ourselves right now, not having sex. To some people, that's crazy. People, there's something wrong with us. We're not mentally there. Like think about it. Like, when you tell somebody, hey, I'm not, with the world where there's 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, and then you're a grown woman with a child who's saying you're not having sex, that's a strange to people who don't know God, right? So you're rare, right? You're rare, you're different, you're special, you're unique. And I think you have to move in a certain kind of boldness to protect that virtue, right? Protect that. And when a man tells you, hey, if he keeps doing it, then cancel the conversation. Like hang up. Hey, I don't want to talk to you right now. You got to be that strong and that bold. If 2023 you wasn't that bold, make it a statement. For 2024, you're going to be completely different, right? Because it saves you a lot of time. And then also God starts to see your faithfulness. Like, oh wow, you just turning down and turning down. Just be a turn down queen. That's your hashtag turn down queen all 2024. Right? Stop letting things last for 7 seconds and 7 minutes and stay, because the more you stay on the phone, the more it goes up. It's not really a red flag, but the more you stay on the phone, the more you're condoning it, and the more you're saying that it's okay. Because now then you guys keep talking. Well, let's change the subject. No, let's just change the subject. Let's change the phone. Like get off. You don't have to. What I'm saying is that you don't have to be entertaining it. Once they start doing that, they're going to keep doing that. It's not going to be. I used to do that. I'm not going to lie. I used to do that. I was him. And half of the men probably were that guy. A woman tell you no, you keep talking. Yeah. It might work the next day. Let me call her back 2 hours after that. Let me call you back at night. What's your most vulnerable time? Yeah. When you're quiet. We know the patterns. Men aren't stupid. We know that at 9 to 10, you in your bed. You probably put the baby down. Let me call you. You're probably watching this. We know. And that's why we're up here telling you this about red flags, is because we were those people. Yeah. So hang up on us. Tell us we don't want to talk to us no more. It's over. Yep. Like just cut it, like knock it off, like and just remove it. And it's hard. It's easier said than done.
Wait, hold on. Say that again on the mic.
Okay, so I actually just told the guy that, and he told me that's why you're single now. Women like you are too difficult to deal with. And that bothered me for so long that he said that. I literally cried to my brother, and my brother said, stop your stupidness. You need to stop. You're too grown for this. You have standards, and that's fine. He's not the one for you. But it wasn't that. It was the words he said. It made me feel a way about myself for like at least 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We cancel those words spoken over you in Jesus' name. That is not why you're single, and you will not be single forever. We cancel those arrows. We send them back to the pits of hell in Jesus' name.
Amen.
And also too, along with prayer and people around you, I'm sure you have friends that's around you that's protecting you spiritually. You have to find, and also therapy too. You also have to find. What I'm about to say. What you also have to find is positive redirection for things that people tell you. Because people, like I said before, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. It's not what's said to you, it's how you respond to it. So you have to, every negative thing that somebody got to say to you, find a positive replacement for it, right? Like, you'll never find somebody else. Change that. I will find somebody else, right? Because my standards only scare away people who aren't right for me. And that's okay. Yeah, and you can't allow someone who doesn't love you, who has no power over you,
Yeah.
to dictate how you feel about yourself, right?
Come on.
So right now, you got to speak life on yourself. Give her the mic and let her speak life over herself, because she has to do it too, because you have to believe it.
Yeah.
You got to get comfortable being
I
uncomfortable.
am not difficult.
Yes.
I am lovable.
Yes.
I will be loved.
Yes.
I'm marriageable. Is that a word?
I'm marriageable.
It is now.
It's in the word now. I'm marriageable.
Yeah.
Say
I'll
I
get
am
married
worth.
one day.
Say I am worth the wait.
I am worth the wait.
I think one of the things I've noticed is usually when men throw out labels like that, it's because they're lazy. Period. No, I'm not difficult. I'm just not easily accessible to you. And it's okay, right? When I was in HR, as most of you know, I had the responsibility of hiring and firing someone. And part of the interview process is determining, are you good enough to work for my company? And if you weren't, I did not hire you. I don't care how you feel about it. You're not good enough. And I am not going to allow the company that I'm working for to invest their resources in compensating you for poor work. You haven't proven that you are worth compensation. Therefore, you don't get compensation. And it's the same way with dating. You haven't proven that you're worth my time, my effort, my energy, my resources. And the reason behind it is because in your track record, you haven't had to work for this. Everything's come easy to you. You've never grown up. You are still a 13-year-old boy who is doing left, left, right, right, up, down, down, enter, green button, and now you've gotten the cheat code and you've gone to the next level. You've never had to figure out how to get there organically. So now here I come, organically telling you, no, yes, you're right, I am difficult because you're a 13-year-old incorrigible boy throwing a tantrum. I don't want that as a man, and I don't want that as a husband.
Come on.
Because I am not disciplining a 13-year-old stubborn man out of my child. I'm not going to look my boy in the face and say, yeah, you're acting like your daddy, and I'm going to discipline the person I lay with out of you. So before I get to that point, I'm just not going to lay with you.
That's it.
So yeah.
That's awesome. All right, last question.
I was trying to figure out how to word it. I love what you guys said earlier about friendship and creating a safe space for vulnerability. In my experience, I have a lot of guy friends, and I think I create that safe space for them. I guess my question is, which is something we don't talk about, guys get friend zoned, but girls get friend zoned too. So I don't know if my gift of friendship is somehow hurting my dating life. Because sometimes it's like, you're a friend, oh, you know so much, like I can't really see myself going deeper with, or, you know, like I've experienced stuff like that, so I don't know. I don't know how to word the question, but I guess you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to ask a question. Do you have any, do you see a future with any of your friends? Or have you?
I thought.
And then you feel as if you've been friend zoned. Have you ever like expressed that to them? Why not? Do you? No, because I'm just saying, because somebody to ask that question, you had to, you know, had feelings for your friend, or your friends had feelings for you, in order for, you know, the question to come up. Not to make it, you know, put you on the spot or anything like that, but did you communicate that you like them? Because then, if you did, and then they still friend zone you, then we have information that we could work with.
You know what? I think sometimes with friends, there are certain boundaries we cross that shouldn't be crossed. So it's like initially we'll have a friendship and we'll cross boundaries without having like, well, what are we? You know? So I think that's what I've experienced, which makes it hard to say like, I want something more because it's like we're friends, or I know what their situation is, or, you know, so like.
Are they saved? Okay. Yeah. No. Definitely. Yeah. Because what I would say, they would have pursued you already. You know, like I said, a man, and we know what we want, and we're not gonna just let you wait around there in a friend zone, like put you in a box and just leave you there. Especially if you're a woman of value. To me, not saying that you're not a woman of value, but if a man knows that you're a woman of value, you're hard to catch, you have these good qualities, we're definitely not gonna just let you, sit in a corner and just collect dirt. We're gonna pursue you in that area.
Pastor. I think you said it. Wait, where's the mic? Oh, sorry.
I didn't really want to speak, but I just want to say one thing towards what Brittany says, because I think like I've experienced that at some point, in the sense of like some guys will try to use a friendship to manipulate getting relationship benefits without committing to a relationship. But you have to like have discernment and wisdom to see like this is what's happening. Like this person is just being manipulative. You have to like see through the manipulation and realize like if a person could sit and say they're your friend but try to like manipulate a relationship out of like relationship qualities without committing to you, are they really your friend? So I think it's a bigger question that you have to ask yourself as to, because sometimes we're friends to people, but they're not friends to us. So it's like, am I
That's
more
good.
this person's friend than they are my friend? And like, how does this relationship benefit me? Because it may seem selfish, but it's not a selfish thing to question if the friendship is beneficial to you. Because a lot of times, a person that's giving, we're beneficial to the friendship, but the friendship is not beneficial to us. So you have to look at it from the perspective of, is this friendship beneficial to me? Am I growing from this friendship? Is it growing me spiritually, mentally, emotionally, or is it draining me because I'm giving it more than what I'm getting out of it?
That's awesome. And to be honest, it's very rare, unless this is a friend from like high school or college or church, or you worked in like this a close quarter. There's no guy that's just gonna be a friend just for the sake of it. A guy that's around you is around you because he has a motive to be around you. Period. There's no guy, like we were just talking about this the other day. Like I don't have room for a friend, a female friend. I can't, if I was to say, oh, that's just my friend, like a new girl.
Yeah, that comes now.
There's a reason that I have my wife is my friend, right? And now I have a lot of people that I know. I'm not calling her a friend, right? But my point is, unless, and I say a friendship can evolve maybe in a community like church, when you're in a close quarter with a person, you see them regularly. I'm talking about like I said, at work, or if you knew somebody growing up, a child friend, that's understandable. But a guy you just meet and he just talks about, I just want to be a friend. No. What's that? Your alternate.
Yeah.
He's gonna hang around until, if you even dating someone, until he knows when there's something wrong in that relationship, it's his opportunity to come right on in.
I would add to that, when you get in your quiet time with God, just Father, in the name of Jesus, show me whom I need to remove from my life. I just believe that a lot of times we have a lot of people who do not belong in our life, right? Whether it's a childhood friend, whether it's a friend from 5 years ago, whether it's a friend from yesterday, but what has the Lord told you about your friend? What have you asked God to reveal to you about the people that are around you? If we think about Daniel, the people around him helped him. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? Their character played a role in all of them surviving multiple times. So I would say, in addition to everything that we've told you in the practical, attack that too with your time with God. Who are the people I need to let go of? Right? There's certain people that we just don't need to be around, and I just believe that access should be denied. that there should be a time or date of expiration where you just decide, I'm no longer the woman or the man who wants friends of opposite sex. For what? Right? What are we doing? And unless, as Apostle and Keishorne was saying, if these are your childhood friends and you gather every now and then and you hang out, whatever, that's cool. But your actual friends that you're hanging out with every other day of the opposite sex, what are you getting out of it? Right? So I would encourage you to go back to, what are my values? What are my, I think I shared this in our life. What does it mean for me to be treated well? What does it mean for my values to be respected? Right? Why is that important? Because when you identify what it means for you to be treated well, when you identify what your values are that you respect and you want other people to respect, you immediately become a magnet for those who want to treat you well and want to respect your values, and then you become basically a repellent for those who would wish to do the opposite, right? So I would challenge you to really sit and ask yourself, how do I want to be treated well? And what are the values that I want respected? And me aligning myself with these persons or people, is that a reflection of what I want? Yeah. Awesome.
Last thought, last question. I know. That's the third last question.
Sorry, guys. One more last question.
For me, one of my red flag is people texting you on the first form of contact. Like, you meet a guy, it's like, oh, can I have your number? I give you my number, but the first thing you're going to do is text me. Like, that's my red flag to turn off. Like, if I'm giving you your number, we're going to get more out of a conversation. I can hear your tone of voice. I can pick up on where you're coming from. But some of these guys are just coming there and like, oh, and start texting. And I'm like, and that, for me, that is a red flag. And I'm like, so like, what is your take on this old first initial texting? Changing it?
Yeah, I feel like, I think I wouldn't say on the first conversation if it's a red flag, only because it could be a way of easing his way into a conversation with you. So I would say after the text, because you prefer talking on the phone, say, I'd rather talk on the phone, can we chat? And then after that, if he still wants to text.
But do you tell them that, though? Do you communicate that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I've heard that recently over the past year or so. I've heard women saying that men will just keep texting and not call them on the phone. I don't know what that's about. Maybe that's a new school thing. It's on.
No, I think it's because they spend a lot of time on social media. Like, technology and social media has built a habit and a pattern for people. Like sliding in DMs, all these things. Everything's technology now. You're swiping, you're pressing like, you're commenting. So unconsciously becoming a pattern in who they are. So it's just becoming a habit. They have to break that. And it's not your job to break it for them. So if you tell them that I prefer to be on the phone, let that be your last text.
Yeah.
And then you see if they call you.
Then see if they call.
That's it. I prefer to be.
Sending pictures of themselves?
Block them. Men do that?
It's new.
That's that new generation. How old is these men?
What?
I'm not surprised. No, I'm not.
And they sending you picture? No. My drip. My drip.
Nah, it's different.
I just think it goes back
That's
to
weird.
what are your non-negotiables, right? You don't even get you don't even get an arousal. That's I'm like. You don't even get an arousal out of that. The minute you see something that is a red flag and you verbally or vocally address it, which I appreciate that you guys just highlighted, not just immediately cutting it off,
And then if in fact the person takes what you're saying and respects your values,
Yeah.
then we continue. If not, you, Keishorne, just block. The block is there for a reason. It's God's gift to humanity, right? And it's not a mean or rude thing. It's advocate for yourself. If it's not respected, set the boundary, because what they just said is they're just going to keep pushing your buttons until you give them something that they want. Block.
You better ignore them, because the thing about it is that, you know, a lot of times it's hard because you entertain it, because sometimes you're bored. And you will continue the conversation, right? As much as you say you block and you block, when you home alone and you bored and you have nobody to talk to, best believe I know that sometimes we be entertaining it. And we let it go further than it should go, because a lot of times we feel alone. I'm not saying you. You're like, not me. Don't even. But sometimes, Christian or not, we still have feelings. We still have these emotions, right? And we get bored. And sometimes it's like, dang, I know I'm supposed to be talking to him or her, but let me just entertain him, because it's not like you don't have nobody else. It's as you feel as if you don't have nobody else. And you're sleeping and you're bored. And you might even say, hey, how was your day? And you know you're not supposed to be speaking to him. Or he might text you and say, how was your day? And you know that you don't even text and you're supposed to be on the phone, but you entertain it anyway. So you have to kind of pick a side. It's either you're going to be consistent in your denials, or you're going to just be consistent in your no's, right? Because sometimes you have to be in that isolation to grow, right? Because you can only grow in isolation. You can only grow when things are quiet and you can hear yourself. You can hear God. You can grow. But when you're entertaining people and you say they keep sending you pictures, keep is the key word. Keep means you're allowing him to keep sending you pictures. If he sent me a picture and I blocked him, that's a whole different conversation. But when you say they keep sending me, that means they keep staying unblocked. They're still unblocked, right? So it's like you have to be, yeah, it's true, but you have to be strong and say, you know what, this is not what I want. Yeah. And as much as I have to sleep alone at night, as long as, you know, I can't talk to nobody, it's okay, right? And it's hard. It's easier said than done, right? Look at you, you're married, you easier said than done. You go home and do whatever you want. Of course, yeah, that's the gratitude of waiting. I went through my desert. I've been through my desert, trust me. I've been through that, but it's something that you have to do, and you're going to be tested. It's going to come. It's going to come. Faith without deeds is dead. You can pray all you want, but as long as you keep acknowledging it, it means nothing. So that goes for you over here too, and both of you guys. I'll exchange numbers. So when he texts, you text her, and you text her. Sometimes you have to work as a conglomerate to get things right. So.
This is good. All right, guys, that's a wrap. Amen. Let's give God some praise tonight. Wow, thank you, everyone. Let's all stand. Let's all stand. I want to commend you all. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight, playing this or that, and the Red Flags game. The Red Flags game was fun, right? We're gonna work on a Christian version. We're talking about it already. But that'll be so amazing. Thank you, Hannah, for hosting tonight. Listen, so we know that this is the last First Friday of 2023. I want to make sure that all of you guys are in our email list and that we're communicating. So if you RSVP'd to attend tonight, we have your information. If you didn't RSVP and you just showed up, feel free to leave your email with us so that we can communicate with you after tonight. All right. But next year we're going to keep doing these, and we're intending to grow it, make it bigger and better. Each month that we host these things, we have some plans. We're talking to even other ministries that are also going to align and partner with us moving forward. So this is just the beginning. This is only our second one, right? Yeah, we working. So let's get ready to be dismissed. We have some books also in the back. Keishorne wrote and I wrote on relationships and just different areas. So if you want to grab a copy, we'll be in the back right after. I'm going to ask Hannah to come back and close us in a word of prayer.
Father, we thank you for an amazing time of fellowship. We thank you that we were able to learn and grow, challenged and be challenged. Father, we ask that the information that we received tonight, that we actually take it home and we sit on it. We bring it back to you. We ask you to identify the areas in us that need to grow and be developed, as well as identify what our red flags are, the things that we are not going to entertain, encourage, or push through and push forward. Father, we ask for a supernatural increase of boldness and courage and the ability to stand flat-footed in what we believe, to hold true to our convictions, and to allow you to always, constantly, and forever lead the relationships that we build, not just the romantic ones, but the friendship ones, since our friends are our sounding boards. Father, we ask that you continue to guide us into all truth, allowing us to truly stand and believe in what it is that you said, but most importantly, to wait until the time that it is right for us to be introduced to the spouses that you have for us. Guide, guard, and protect us, and allow us to leave this place, but never your presence. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.